What if the key to Europe's future wasn't in Berlin, Paris, or Brussels, but in Athens? That's right. Greece, the underdog of Europe, scarred by debt and written off as the continent's problem child, is suddenly back in the spotlight. And why is that? It's because the IMEC corridor has turned its overlooked geography into the hottest property in global trade. And if Greece plays its cards right, it won't just recover, it will become Europe's most strategic powerhouse. For decades, Europe's trade crown sat firmly in the north: Rotterdam, Hamburg, Antwerp. These ports ruled the seas. Greece, meanwhile, was great for summer holidays and postcards, not the one you trust with Europe's economy. That story's about to flip. Here's why. Picture this. A massive container ship leaves Mumbai, stacked high with electronics, cars, and textiles. Normally, it would slog its way around the Arabian Peninsula, push through the Suez Canal, then crawl up to the overcrowded ports of Northern Europe. Slow, expensive, and congested. But with the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, that same ship docks in Greece, Piraeus to be exact. COSCO, the Chinese giant, has already turned it into one of the busiest ports in the Mediterranean. From there, goods don't waste weeks creeping north by sea. They shoot straight through Greece by rail, up the Balkans, and into Central Europe. The result? Shipping times cut by up to 10 days compared to the old Suez to Rotterdam route, 10 days. That's the difference between your iPhone arriving on launch day or showing up 2 weeks late. And in global trade, those days aren't just delays, they're billions of euros. This is why Greece, once dismissed as Europe's afterthought, suddenly finds itself at the center of the world's newest superhighway. Geography just went from Greece's forgotten weakness to its biggest jackpot. And the numbers back it up. The IMF says Greece's GDP will grow faster than the Eurozone average in 2025, with the EU expecting the boom to keep rolling into 2026. And Piraeus, it's already moving over 5 million containers a year. That's not a prediction, that's a port flexing its muscles.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to France and the US has come to an end. One of the key agendas that were discussed during this trip was the India-Middle East-Europe Corridor, or IMEC. Donald Trump announced that India and the US have agreed to work together to build the corridor.
The discussions were not limited to identifying the segments in which the partnership would take place. The discussions took place in the larger context of stronger connectivity between India and Greece, to look at all possible options that would strengthen this connectivity.
And if Greece knows how to use those muscles, the payoff could be massive. Right now, Greece is standing at a once-in-a-generation crossroads. It can either let the IMEC corridor turn it into a glorified pit stop for global trade, or it can grab the wheel and transform into Europe's trillion-euro powerhouse. Look at Rotterdam. That single port contributes over 6% of the Netherlands' entire GDP. 6% from one city of cranes and containers. Now picture Greece pulling off the same, but on a Mediterranean stage, with Asia feeding directly into its ports. And this isn't just about port fees and customs charges, it's about becoming a hub. Greece could turn into Europe's Singapore, a country whose fortunes explode because it sits where goods, money, and data collide. Take energy. Greece already has LNG terminals like Revitusa and the new floating hub at Alexandroupoli, which alone can handle 5.5 billion cubic meters of gas a year, enough to power every home in Greece several times over, with plenty left to sell to the rest of Europe. Add in new offshore wind and solar farms, plus future hydrogen pipelines ready to pump clean energy straight from Middle East into EU, and suddenly Greece isn't just a stop on the map, it's the plug socket for Europe. Then comes the digital revolution. With global tensions threatening old internet cable routes, tech giants are already betting on Greece. Google's new subsea cable, Blue Ramen, is set to link India to Europe through Greece, turning Athens into a data gateway, not just a holiday destination. And don't forget the rails. Thessaloniki and Piraeus aren't dead ends, they're launch pads. With upgrades like the sea-to-sea corridor, cargo can shoot straight into Central Europe, cutting time and cost. The payoff? An extra 230 million euros a year in port revenue and 35 million euros in public taxes just from the rails. Trade like Rotterdam, energy like Norway, and data like Singapore. If Greece scales even part of that, Its economy isn't just recovering, it's heading into the trillions over the coming decades. But here's the catch. Corridors don't just move goods, they move power. And Greece's location puts it right in the middle of a three-way tug of war between Europe, China, and the US. Let's start with China. Years ago, when Europe was busy lecturing Greece about debt, Beijing was writing checks. COSCO swooped in and took control of Piraeus, transforming it into one of the busiest ports in the Med. For China, it was a backdoor into Europe's supply chains. For Greece, it was survival cash during its debt crisis. But today, that investment looks less like lifeline, more like leverage. The US isn't blind to this. Washington and NATO already treat Greece as a frontline ally, with bases in Suda Bay and Alexandroupoli. They see the corridor not just as a trade route, it's about checking China's influence and building a plan B around Turkey, whose reliability is, let's say, shaky. Meanwhile, Brussels has its own agenda. The EU is desperate for supply chain resilience, code for, let's not depend on routes that could be blocked by the Suez Canal, Russia, or Turkish politics. Suddenly Greece isn't the problem child, it's the favorite student, courted with EU infrastructure money and political goodwill. But here's the twist. Greece has a habit of dropping the ball. Debt crises, corruption, endless red tape. It's fumbled golden chances before. The question is, will Athens finally cash in on its geography, or once again auction off the family silver for pocket change? Because let's be real, dreams don't come free. Behind the trillion-euro potential are some serious roadblocks. And unless Greece tackles them head-on, that bright future might fade fast. So what's standing in the way? First up, Turkey. Athens and Ankara have been sparring for decades over airspace, maritime borders, and drilling rights in the Aegean. And IMEC, it cuts Turkey out completely. That makes Erdogan furious. Remember, Turkey controls the Bosporus Strait and has NATO's second largest army. If tensions heat up, this shiny new shortcut could start looking a lot less secure. Then there's Israel. IMEC runs straight through it, but with conflicts in Gaza and rising instability, the question is simple. Can Israel stay a reliable link in this chain? Because if Israel sneezes, the corridor catches a cold, and Greece, waiting at the far end, could be longing for cargo that never arrives. And we can't ignore India and Pakistan. IMEC begins in India, but with two nuclear rivals staring each other down, one border clash and trade could get halted before it even leaves the subcontinent. But it's not just regional drama. Take Piraeus, Greece's golden ticket. More than half of it is owned by China's COSCO. So while the West sells IMEC as a way to push back on Beijing, the irony is brutal. China already controls Greece's biggest port. But Greece's biggest obstacle might be Greece itself. A country tangled in red tape, scarred by corruption, and starved of investment. It ranks 86th worldwide for ease of doing business. Investors love Greece's map, but the hate its paperwork. Without real reform, IMEC risks choking before it even breathes. And even when you get past the bureaucracy, there's the hardware problem. Some of Greece's ports still look like they're stuck in the Cold War. You can't claim to be the Singapore of the Med if half your cranes are older than the dock workers running them. Finally, the global storm. Wars in Ukraine, Middle East conflicts, US-China trade spats, any one of these could derail IMEC. Unlike Hamburg or Antwerp, Greece has no safety net. So yes, the opportunity is massive, but it's a high-stakes game. Greece sits at the center of a corridor that could rewrite Europe's trade map, power its energy grid, and become a digital hub. But neighbors, rivals, red tape, and global shocks all threaten to steal the spotlight. If Athens can navigate these challenges, it could finally claim the crown it's long been denied. If not, Turkey, Israel, or even some northern European ports could swoop in, taking the corridor and the trillion-euro dream right out of Greece's hands. From ports to pipelines to political chess, we've unpacked it all, so Tell us, how do you see Greece's future shaping up? Will it finally seize the trillion-euro opportunity, or will someone else grab it first? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this dive into Greece's future as fascinating as we did, hit like and subscribe so you don't miss our next deep dive.